Meanwhile, we have some more breaking news that is coming in. Is a trilateral between India, China and Pakistan possible in the near future? That's the big question. That's because the Chinese ambassador to India has said that a trilateral is a constructive idea. Now, he has added that it may not happen now, but in future it will help and bring peace and tranquility. That's the latest breaking news update here on Republic TV. The big question is a trilateral meeting between India, China and Pakistan possible? We have Abhishek Kapoor, our executive editor, now joining us on the phone line. Abhishek, China dropping a hint after PM Modi's outreach.
Well, Krishna, this seems to be a little bit of a breach of the Wuhan spirit, it seems, and you can expect that there would be a response coming from the Ministry of External Affairs because the issue between India and Pakistan are essentially bilateral, is something which is written in stone, and India's foreign policy is actually premised on the fact that India is absolutely capable of handling its relationship with Pakistan and that there are no intermediaries needed. And in that context, it is a little surprising that the Chinese ambassador took this opportunity while he was actually discussing way forward from Wuhan and makes this kind of statement. It is, as I said, a little surprising. And,
Abhishek,
you can expect...
Abhishek, stay with us. Let's quickly listen in to what the Chinese envoy had to say.
No. I said this is a proposal suggested by some Indian friends. And personally, I think this is a very good, constructive idea. And maybe not now, but in the future, that will be right direction. We should needed to do something to realize this idea. And that's a great idea, and help to resolve the bilateral issues, help to maintain the regional peace and tranquility, and everything benefits for any country. It's worth of us to do.
That's what the Chinese ambassador to India had to say. In fact, they're saying that it was some Indian colleagues who had suggested this. China essentially backing a trilateral summit, pitching for an India-Pakistan-China trilateral summit, and saying that you cannot have a situation like the standoff in Doklam, and for the future it will help to bring peace and tranquility if there is this trilateral that can take place. Abhishek Kapoor, our executive editor, continues to be with us on the phone line. Abhishek, you heard what Luo Zhaohui, the Chinese ambassador to India, had to say. In fact, he's saying it was some Indians who suggested this trilateral option. Well,
as the diplomacy goes, he has been as indirect as possible, and that provides him a bit of an escape window there, Krishna. But the fact of the matter is, if he is even slightly be seen to be endorsing any kind of Chinese intervention so far as India-Pakistan relationship is concerned, it would be definitely, I can tell you, seen with an element of surprise and suspicion, given the fact that the Chinese ambassador was actually speaking about way forward post the Wuhan summit between the two leaders, and in fact a similar informal is planned next year where President Xi Jinping would be visiting India on the invitation of Prime Minister Modi. And by all counts, it seems that this coinage, Wuhan spirit, is something which essentially talks about calming the borders between India and Pakistan, facilitating trade, certain issues of which Ambassador did discuss in his speech that he made at this event, but it seems that it was a bit of a quicksand where he got caught when asked by reporters about a suggestion that perhaps has come from some think tank or somebody, but for the Chinese ambassador to be endorsing it in any manner is essentially something which would not be liked by the Ministry of External Affairs, I can tell you, Krishna.
Right, Abhishek, stay with us. Let's quickly again listen to what the Chinese ambassador to India had to say, and then we'll continue chatting after that.
No. I said this is a proposal suggested by some Indian friends. And personally, I think this is a very good, constructive idea. And maybe not now, but in the future, that will be right direction. We should needed to needed to do something to realize this idea. And that's a great idea, and help to resolve the bilateral issues, help to maintain the regional peace and tranquility, and everything benefits for any country. It's worth of us to do.
We have Sushant Sareen now joining us on the phone for this big story that we're tracking. Sushant, China pitching for India-Pakistan-China Trilateral Summit, and you have the Chinese ambassador saying it's in fact some of the Indian friends who were suggesting this.
Well, I'm not surprised that there is a lobby in India which, would want something like this. They're the usual suspects, and I think that deserves to be treated with the contempt that it really attracts. Frankly, now there is no scope for any China, India, Pakistan trilateral, because if the Chinese want to insert themselves into the India-Pakistan bilateral, then I think they need to really restudy the entire South Asian dynamics. But if they want to have our trilateral, I don't think it would be a bad idea to have an India, China, and America triangle, or maybe some other such formulation, or maybe an India, Taiwan, China kind of a trilateral can also be thought of. If that is what the intention is. If the Chinese think that they can mediate or intercede or play a role between India and Pakistan,
right.
I think the best role they can play is to get out of the, this bilateral relationship, keep a hands-off approach, let us handle Pakistan the way we think best.
But Sushant, if I may,
insert themselves into this.
If I may, correct me if I'm wrong, China is obviously bullish about the One Belt, One Road initiative, for all of which Pakistan is a partner, and to maintain its own diplomatic stand between India and Pakistan is why it would want this trilateral meeting in the first place. Because this way, you leave the onus up to India and Pakistan to make sure they make amends, whereas China can go ahead with its One Belt, One Road initiative.
See, China will do what China thinks is in its interest. We will do what we think is in our interest. And the Pakistanis will do what they think is in their interest. Now, to the extent that our interest and the Chinese interest converge, yes, we can certainly have a dialogue with them. But I don't see any place where our and Chinese interests converge along with Pakistani interests, because I think that's not going to happen. Not the way Pakistan is currently restructured. If the Pakistanis reform, become a normal country, perhaps there might be a scope for a trilateral cooperative mechanism. As of now, I don't think there is any such scope, number one. Number two, the Chinese are, of course, going to be bullish on Belt and Road. It's the new colonial model which they have come up with, and they are going ahead with it. That doesn't mean that we have to endorse it or we have to like it, or we have to be a part of it. As things stand, the way the BRI model is structured, it has very little purchase in it for us. And I think the government of India has made it very clear. Of course, there are busybodies, I don't want to take names, but everybody knows who these people are. They keep going to China and on sponsored trips and keep, flogging this line that India should become part of BRI.
Right.
But I don't think those people call the...
Right. Sushant Sareen, stay with us. We have Phunchok Stobdan, expert in Chinese affairs and defense studies and analysis, joining us. Mr. Stobdan, talk to us. How do you view this pitch from China for a trilateral between India, China and Pakistan?
Well, I just listened to Ambassador of China in the Imperial Hotel. His speech was quite interesting. And this issue about the trilateral cooperation between India, China, Pakistan was, I think to me, it was on the expected line. Because this is, I think gradually you will get to know what may have transpired in the Wuhan summit between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, that there is some kind of a movement which is taking place between India and China, Pakistan, India, that had to come about because India has also given that signal that we are willing to sacrifice the issue of the Tibet, and therefore in exchange the Chinese are now playing on the Pakistan issue, especially in terms of cross-border terrorism. So this was on the expected line. Also, perhaps on the line of how China played a role between North Korea and United States in getting about a summit between President Trump and Chairman Kim in Singapore recently. So China is playing a major role, a big role in shaping the Asian peace and stability, or whatever you may call it. But it's quite interesting that this is going to happen within the framework of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This is all about, I think, the entry of India and Pakistan in the SCO is about getting India and Pakistan together to some kind of a thaw in the relationship, ultimately boiling down to Kashmir issue. So you will find that, yes, I think I'll stop here.
Mr. Topdan, strategic affairs expert, joining us with that perspective. Thank you, Mr. Topdan, so much for joining us.